why I think the onus was on him to de-escalate, because he's the one that kind of started this last spin.
I appreciate it. Let me just address this point. I'm in the mood to address points today. So, listen, I did not say that when people cry automatically it's manipulation. And that's why I'm going to say it again. Please open ears. I never said that. I never said that when people cry, it's automatically manipulative. I said, I'm taking into context what happened. You punched me, I punched you, and now you're crying about it, and the conversation's coming to an end. That's what I was talking about. And because of Kosheia'S past history and the way she's dealt with certain situations, right? You're willing to dish it out, but as soon as it gets dished back to you, you start crying. That's why I said about the manipulation aspect. Had it been somebody else, I wouldn't have probably said that, because I don't have that narrative already of that particular person. If Maya had started crying or Alexa started crying, I wouldn't have had that particular perspective. I took it in context in terms of what she has done. So it's not about me saying about a girlfriend I'm dating. I hate when people do that, because it's a sneak attack when they try to hit you with I hope your next girl relationship, you don't think your girlfriend, when I never said that. I don't like that. I don't like when people do that. It's a low blow kind of hit. Miss Ionu, please leave that alone. Now, my situation in this situation, I agree with you. I think I agree with you the way that, you know what, when it comes to Laron, unfortunately, he could have handled this in much more better and grace. And I feel like, you know, in this situation with, it's almost a loss. It's almost a lose-lose. You know, it can always be a lose-lose in a situation, right? So the only way to kind of win this again is to go for understanding, right? So I want to reiterate that point. It's not about winning the argument. It's not about winning. I know, sorry. It's not about winning the argument. It's about understanding begets more understanding. And so if you don't, then what you're going to do is you're going to end up ruining the relationship. But that's why, that's why I like, when there are situations, I think it can come back from this, right? It didn't get too crazy. I mean, it could be handled better. I think it can be handled better. I don't think it's gone past a certain point. I don't think it's gone past a certain point where, you know, you can't come back from. I think there's still come back. I think there's a conversation tomorrow. I think there's a conversation they can have later on that can be fleshing this out. But it requires two people to be level-headed at that time, and it requires a more cool head to be able to have that conversation, and actually for both people to actually be listening. I don't need you to be crying again in this situation. I actually need you to have a conversation. And I guess I'm giving more of the Laron side. You're giving more, I guess, a more balance in this. I'm trying to give it more of a Laron side aspect, because I understand where it's coming from, and I can understand how hard it can be in that scenario as well. So, yeah. So, but I definitely hear it can be handled better, and I think it should have been handled better.
Yeah, and I see. Listen, I guess I don't get that affected by tears. I've had women who are not criers. I've had women that are criers. For me, like, you know, it is what it is. I'm not really gonna, you know, like if we're in a heated situation and you're crying, you know, might I attend to it, but we can still keep talking. You know, we could still continue the conversation as long as you're in a position to do so. And I think, like, there's still an element of people bringing their baggage to situations, because if you've had bad experiences with somebody that uses their tears as a weapon, then your default is going to be like, oh, there's no reason for her to cry. Because I even saw Phil say that you can't tell somebody there's no reason for them to cry either, right? You know, sometimes there's things that make people cry. It might not make you cry, but there's a reason for it. She felt emotional, and mind you, he also did embarrass her. So some people cry when they get embarrassed. So hey, I don't really think it's a big deal. I think what happens is you know, what are the tears and how are they used? Now, if somebody, you know, it's a constant, right? And you have to see a pattern before you can define a pattern, right? So if she's constantly crying every time you have an argument, then you know it's a pattern. But if the first time she cries, you're like, oh, I've seen this before. She's crying. I know she's trying to manipulate me. You haven't even seen it from her. This is the first time you've seen her cry with you. So allow her to define it. Allow yourself to fully assess it before you go to that default place. And I think that's where we need to be, because yes, can we use information and collect it and, you know, kind of know a little bit, but for certain things, I think we have to also assess the actual person, assess their behavior, and give them a chance. And that's where I think it comes from, entering into relationships and friendships with good faith. And you can do that and still have your boundaries without being an all or nothing, right? As soon as you see something, you jump on it, right? As soon as I see the tears, oh, you're trying to manipulate me, right? Take it easy, maybe or maybe not, you know? So I think that's where you just gotta have that security within yourself to say, what's going to happen here? And I think sometimes, like, this is the danger of the human mind. It's the what's going to happen. So what happens if she stop if I stop for a second and attend to her tears? What's the worst thing that can happen? Right? I don't know. We don't really know. Or maybe I don't get to say my point at that moment. Okay, that's the worst case scenario. What's the worst case scenario on the flip side? If I flip out, if I don't listen, if I shut her down, I miss the moment, I damage the relationship, I kind of misread something that maybe wasn't true. You know what I'm saying? So you got to do a certain risk assessment, and there's more risk on the side of shutting down, not listening, making the assumption versus the other side where you just kind of check the temperature and you just kind of relax a little bit. And I think that just comes with, you know, time, trusting the person, trusting yourself, right? Because sometimes it's like, I've been hurt before, so I can't even trust myself to behave how I would naturally behave. So I can't trust me because I feel like doing that is going to put me in a position of vulnerability. Hey, you gotta realize, relationships, you're going to get hurt. Trust me. There's nobody in a relationship that's never been hurt before. There's no relationship, no scenario, no set of boundaries and bars that you're going to create where you're not going to be hurt at sometimes, where your feelings are not going to, you know, be on the line, where it's the person's not going to do something to you. It's just unrealistic to kind of set yourself up to think, I'm going to hold all the cards, I'm going to always be in control, and I'm never going to get my feelings hurt. You know, you kind of set yourself up for a false expectation where once the person does hurt you, then it's like, boom, you're done. So that's my little long soliloquy.
No, it's a good soliloquy. Like I said, I think we're having a good dialogue. I'm going to push back again. I think we're doing a disservice to saying that, oh, does she cry every time? We have to wait for that. We don't have to wait for that, because the scenario is given a context. You decided to punch. I punched too, and now you're crying. I'm not going to look at it as I'm going to be, oh my God, she's so emotional about the situation. No, I'm going to look at it as it's going to be manipulative because of the situation, the context of the situation. You decided to not text me, not message me, and then you've also decided that you ain't going to really be interacting with me. You wait till then you get to the show. You get to the show, and I said the show, but you get to the house, the pajama party, and then you are now flirting with other people in front of my face. And then I give back to you what you gave to me. Right? Now, it's immature. I'm not saying it's not immature. I want to make it very, very clear. It's not that it's immature. Okay? All right? It's not that it's immature. I mean, it is immature, right? So I'm not saying that, right? And she's a woman is exactly why this is going to be a problem. Because her being a woman doesn't mean anything. When you are doing something in that situation and you end up doing something like she was doing, you end up flirting on purpose, right? And then you come into a situation and the person also too is going to respond by giving you back what you gave wrongly. By the way, we don't agree with tit for tat. I'm only explaining the participant here. Tit for tat. Then you start crying because I gave you what you gave back. And you think I'm going, if I already feel like you were doing too much and I responded to that, I'm probably not going to be in a space to see these tears as being authentic, because in a situation when you were doing to hurt me, you weren't feeling that way, right? And when I gave you back what you gave me, I'm going to not look at it some type of way. Of course you're going to look at it some type of way. This is why I said that in that situation, unfortunately, the person's not going to look at tears in that particular way as, oh, she's hurt. No, because you would do what you were doing. You crying because you're crying because you're hurt, or you crying because you couldn't do what you couldn't do what I did. And so now you're going to consider, does this person actually really care about me? Which is where he was going. And I'm not saying he's right, by the way. I'm, again, making it very clear. I'm making distinctions about what people are doing.